Juana Barraza, also known as the Little Old Lady Killer, is a Mexican serial killer and former professional wrestler who is convicted of murdering 16 elderly women, but likely murdered nearly 50 between 1998 and 2006 by bludgeoning or strangling them before eventually robbing them. Hi there, my name is Misha. Welcome to All Things True Crime, or welcome back if you're a regular. If you enjoy this video, please remember to like it, share it, comment, and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss my next video. And then ding the bell, that way you'll get notified the next time I upload. That's All Things True Crime. It's truly chilling. Juana Barraza is born on December 27, 1957 in Ipazayucan, Hidalgo, Mexico. I'm sure I destroyed that name, my apologies. This is a rural area north of Mexico City. Her mother is an alcoholic prostitute, and her father is a police officer. When Juana is 3 months old, her mother takes her and begins, or continues, a relationship with her stepfather. So Juana's mom is sleeping with her own stepfather. As a young child, Juana is never taught to read. She has a pretty rough relationship with her mother, no surprise, right? One story goes that when Juana is 12, in exchange for 3 beers, she gives Juana to a man, pimps her out, just gives her to him for a couple of beers. What a piece. So this dirtbag repeatedly rapes her while she's in his care for 4 years, and she gets pregnant twice, once at 13 and the other time at 16. Both end in miscarriages. When her mom dies of cirrhosis, she leaves for Mexico City. Here she's married and divorced several times, resulting in 4 children. Her firstborn dies from injuries he sustains during a mugging, or some sources say a gang shooting. Either way, he's just 24 years old when he dies. She's always had an interest in lucha libre, a form of Mexican masked professional wrestling. During the 1980s and 1990s, she takes up professional wrestling under the ring name of La Dama del Silencio, or the Lady of Silence, which is in reference to her own shy and quiet personality. It seems her life of crime begins in 1995. She has just delivered her 4th child and is broke busted. In desperate need of money, she begins shoplifting from stores, which naturally evolves to breaking and entering / burglarizing homes. In 1996, her and a friend devise a plan to start stealing from the elderly. They both dress in all white and pretend to be nurses. This works, and the old people let them into their homes. They make sure that they live alone. Once inside, they rob them. Unfortunately for Juana, her partner is married to a corrupt federal police officer, and the married couple devises a side plan to extort her. The cop husband shows up at a house Juana is robbing and demands 12,000 pesos in exchange for not arresting her. I don't know the outcome of that situation, but I wish I did. Okay, in 2000, she retires from professional wrestling and gets desperate for money, even though she only makes around 300 to 500 pesos per fight, which currently is 15 to 25 bucks each fight. Around 1998, brutal murders of the elderly in Mexico City begins to increase. This leads the media to speculate that these murders are the work of a serial killer they dub El Matavietas, or something like that. Note that the L indicates they believe the serial killer is a man. The Mexico City police deny that the murders are connected, and they arrest and charge a variety of people for the various murders. Juana targets her first victim on November 25, 2002. Once she is inside her apartment, instead of robbing her, Juana claims the woman made derogatory comments. This makes her mad, and she begins to beat the elderly woman and then strangles her with her bare hands. She doesn't kill again for around 3 months. From that point onward, her crimes increase rather sharply. By November 5, 2003, law enforcement has enough evidence and witness testimony to conclude a serial killer is at large and posing as a medical professional or government representative. Due to some internal government conflict, the police are nervous to release their findings and thoughts to the public. Her victims are all women aged 60 and older, most of whom live alone. She bludgeons or strangles them to death and then robs them. The chief prosecutor in Mexico City initially believes the murderer to be very clever, careful, and brilliant. He suggests that the unidentified subject probably strikes after gaining the trust of each victim. Law enforcement goes further to suggest the murderer is likely posing as a government official, reaching out to people to sign them up for various welfare programs. The police have a hard time narrowing in on her as a suspect, and that's due to conflicting evidence. It becomes so confusing that at one point they believe these murders may be the work of two murderers. Another fact that muddied the waters is that three of her victims all own the same painting, a print of an 18th century painting by the French artist Jean-Baptiste Grez called Boy in a Red Waistcoat. As the murders continue, investigators believe that Juana is a psychopath who feels no remorse. Welcome to the majority of serial killers. So somehow, Juana is associating her elderly female victims with her mother and believes she's helping society by murdering them. Okay. Since she poses as a government worker, signing folks up for welfare, she falls into the caregiving category of serial killer, even though she wasn't a nurse or anything like that. I'm not sure I agree with that. Law enforcement screws up multiple times, and eventually the media criticizes them pretty heavily, actually, for dismissing evidence that pointed to a serial murder case. Authorities say that idea is just media sensationalism. This is late summer 2005 at this point. As the early days of the investigation drag along, the criticism continues as one journalist refers to the investigation as ham-fisted and unproductive, a swoop on the transvestite prostitutes in Mexico City. Transvestite prostitutes. I'm not going to unpack that one, just going to leave it alone. It is in November 2005 that the Mexican authorities reveal that witness statements indicate the murderer is wearing women's clothing to gain access to the victims' homes. One witness says they see a large woman in a red blouse leaving the home of a victim. A few months later, the law enforcement officers begin examining the victim's fingerprints, something about believing the serial killer had committed suicide. Okay. Starting in mid-2005, she begins dating a man who becomes her accomplice. At this time, the crimes increase in range and frequency, and the time of day changes from daytime to nighttime. They target the wrong lady, a woman who is the mother of a prominent Mexican criminologist. This leads the police to launch a special operation. They begin patrolling the areas more heavily, handing out pamphlets advising the elderly to be careful around strangers, and sketches of the suspect. Seems they even went as far as paying elderly women to be bait. She pauses murdering from sometime in October until the end of January 2006. On January 25, 2006, there is a significant breakthrough in the case. A suspect is arrested while fleeing the home of the latest victim. The victim is an 82-year-old female who was strangled to death with a stethoscope. To the shock of just about everyone, the suspect arrested is a female named Juana Barraza, a 48-year-old female professional wrestler. Apparently, previous witness accounts mentioned seeing a masculine-looking woman. Back to the transvestite prostitute thing I said I would leave alone. Law enforcement officers had been looking for a transvestite and later admitted Juana did, in fact, resemble the composite images of the suspect. So they think she looks like a transvestite. Okay. Juana very much resembles the images. She has close cropped hair that is dyed blonde, a very distinctive mole on her face. When she is arrested, she is carrying a stethoscope, pension forms, and a fraudulent card that identifies her as a social worker. The prosecutors say fingerprint evidence links her to at least 10 murders. Juana admits to 4 murders and denies the rest. Despite her being illiterate, a search of her home by police results in them finding a trophy room with newspaper clippings of the murders, along with objects taken from the victims, and an altar to 2 folk saints commonly respected by Mexican criminals. In the spring of 2008, she is tried, with the prosecution alleging her involvement in nearly 50 murders. On March 31st, she is found guilty on 16 charges of murder and aggravated burglary, which includes 11 separate counts of murder. She is sentenced to 759 years in prison. As I have mentioned a few times, South American laws weren't designed with serial killers in mind. With that said, sentences are served concurrently, and the maximum sentence is 60 years. She will almost certainly spend the rest of her life behind bars, dying in prison, as her parole won't come until 2058, when she is 100 years old. Speaking about her victims, she said, quote, "When I saw them, I felt much anger and more when they acted uppity or believed that because of their money, they could humiliate me." Well, that's creepy. If you enjoy this video, please remember to like it, share it, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Next week, we're going to learn all about Nikolai Zhumegliev, known as the Metal Fang, and Kola the Man-Eater, a Soviet serial killer and cannibal who murders and cannibalizes 10 victims from 1979 to 1991. Deemed not guilty by reason of insanity, he is admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Years later, during transport to another facility, he escapes. Sounds like the Russian take on the Halloween franchise. I'm kidding. Maybe. And he is on the run for nearly 2 years, during which time he murders again and is only recaptured because he wants to be. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe.